Hello, I am the Story Girl, and welcome to the story of Stone Soup. There once were 3 traveling soldiers who didn't have any wars to fight or any battles to take part in, and they were just wandering the countryside when they found that they were out of food. Out of food, but not to worry, there was a village in the distance, and so they walked along to the village. And they went from house to house, knocking on the doors, asking if anybody had a scrap of food that they could spare for 3 poor soldiers who were out of work and out of food. But no matter how many doors they knocked on, everyone said the same thing. No, we don't have any food. We don't have anything we can spare. We don't have anything extra. Go away. And all the doors were slammed in their faces. The 3 soldiers were quite discouraged. They went out to the middle of town to sit by the town square with the fountain and the bell. And they just sat glumly taking drinks out of the fountain, and that's the only free thing that these people in this village would give them. When suddenly one of the soldiers had an idea, and he quickly whispered it to the other 2. And they jumped up off of their seats and they rang the bell. Now this bell that they're ringing is the bell that they ring whenever there's some danger in the town. They ring it to alert all of the villagers. And the villagers know that if they ever hear that bell, come running to the town square to hear what the problem is and what they can do to help. The villagers came rushing to the sound of the bell. What is it? They asked each other. What's wrong? What's happened? What's the danger? And the 3rd soldier stood up and said, "My friends! My friendly soldiers and I are just visitors to your village, but we knew we couldn't leave without warning you of a deadly problem that your village is suffering from." "What is it? What could it be?" all of the villagers wondered. "My friends and I have gone from house to house, and we have asked every single householder in this entire village, and there is no food." That's right, not a single scrap of food left in the entire village. The entire village gasped. They hadn't realized that things were so bad in their village, and each one was thinking about their own private store of food that they kept just for themselves. Could it be possible that their friends and neighbors were suffering with no food to eat and they having so much in store? "Not to worry, not to worry," said the soldier. "My friends and I have traveled the world round, and we have the solution to your problem." And out of his pocket, he pulled out a stone. "Well, that's just a stone," somebody in the back of the crowd said. "Yes, it is a stone, but do not say just a stone. This is the stone that, when it is boiled in water, creates the thickest and most succulent broth you've ever eaten in your life. This single stone has been known to feed a village for more than 100 years. Oh. All the villagers were eager to see the stone in action. Yes, if only we had somebody with a very large kettle, a very large pot, we could make enough broth for everybody in the village. Well, there was one person who did happen to have a very large pot, and they rolled it out into the center of the town, and they lit a fire underneath it and scooped as much water as they would need from the fountain that was in the center of town. And with very much ceremony, the soldier dropped the stone into the pot. "It'll have to boil for a moment," he explained to the watching crowd. "Yes, we'll just have to wait for a moment, and you'll see. You'll see the magnificent broth that is waiting for us to have to sup upon tonight." Well, the people all sat down, unwilling to wait for such a magnificent dinner as that, made just from a stone, no less, just from a stone. Well, the soldier stood up, and he took forth a large spoon and stirred the pot and took a sip. "My friends," he said, "this soup is better than I've ever had from this stone." "It's a pity. But what one doesn't have, one must do without," and he continued to stir the pot. Do without what? Said someone in the crowd. Oh, nothing, nothing, nothing. I was just thinking that if perhaps there was just a handful of salt or pepper we could put in, would really bring out the flavors of the stone broth. But what one doesn't have, one must do without, so I'll just go on stirring the pot. Well, all the villagers looked at each other a little bit guiltily. A man stood out of the crowd. I might just have, only just, a handful of salt and perhaps a bit of pepper I could put into the pot. Do you? Said the soldier. Well, go and fetch it, my good man. Go and fetch it. This soup will be a soup beyond all of your wildest dreams. Well, the man rushed off to his house and came back with 3 handfuls of salt that they measured out carefully and put into the pot. And everyone sat and waited and whispered to each other, what will the soup taste like? I don't know. How could it come from just a stone? Just a stone? And the soldier stirred the pot and took a taste and held up the spoon and said, my friends, with the addition of the salt and the pepper, this soup will be better than even the Lord Mayor himself has ever tasted before. It's just a pity that, oh well. Well, now all the villagers were listening and they said, well, what? Oh, nothing. It's just that the thing that would make this soup even better than what is served at the king's court would be just a bit of soup bone with some stew meat. But, of course, none of us have anything like that, so what we don't have, we must do without. The town butcher, stood up from the crowd. I might just have maybe a small soup bone we could use for the soup. Go and fetch it, man! And the butcher went off to his butcher shop and came back with a whole armful of soup bones, with assistant carrying a whole plate full of stew meat that they brushed off into the soup, and the soup was really bubbling and boiling now, and the people sat back down. The soldier tasted the soup and held up a spoon and said, my friends, the addition of the meat will make this soup better than has graced any king's table. It's just that. What? What is it? Said many people in the crowd. Oh, it's nothing. It's just if we had perhaps a single carrot that would add some richness and sweet flavor to the soup. But what we don't have, we must do without. Well, at that, several of the people popped up out of the crowd and came back with armfuls of carrots, and one person had a potato or 2 to share. Well, by then, many of the people were running back to their houses, bringing bushels of parsley, bringing armfuls of potatoes, bringing celery, every good thing that you would need for a soup, chopping it up happily and scraping all the vegetables into the pot, and the pot continued to simmer. Well, by this time, the people had really gotten into the spirit of things, and there was a band playing in the center of town, and everybody was singing and dancing, and the baker was bringing out rolls and breads, and there was a man bringing out cheeses and crackers, and they were setting out tables all throughout the square, laying them with tablecloths and setting out bowls and plates and spoons, enough for everybody and to spare, until finally the soldier stirred the pot and took a taste and held it up. And there was silence in the square, and he said, my friends, the soup is ready. And he ladled out a bowlful for everyone, and even 2 bowlfuls for anybody who wanted it. And it was a grand, hearty, delicious meal. Isn't it a wonder, said all the people in town. Isn't it a miracle that such a delicious soup as this was made out of nothing but a stone? The end. I am the story girl, though some people have told me that I make a pretty good soup myself and could be called the super girl. thank you for joining the story today. I talk about joining the story quite a lot. I don't know if you noticed this, but even though these stories may have been stories you've heard before or stories that I've read in a book, I tell them differently every single time. Maybe a little bit differently than you heard it the first time you heard this story. Every single time somebody hears or tells a story, they are stepping in to the world of storytelling and adding their own special part to the tale, which is why I want as many people as possible to join the story. This is going to be our last story for the month of September. In October, we do have some Halloween stories. Not too scary because I don't like scary stories, but there will be some witches and maybe a monster or two. So keep your ears open. Go ahead and subscribe, give me a like, give me a thumbs up. So if you would like to hear more stories, I love stories and I want to tell them to as many people as possible. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.